It's part of a manager's job to kind of shield the makers from that influx of communication. And it's definitely not an easy job to do.
That could be the title of this episode. It's your future job will look like your dating life, right?
Would you call it stakeholder Jiu-Jitsu? Stakeholder karate. If you are affected to have basically a conflict of interest, then you're not the right stakeholder for the project.
That would never happen with SAP. They probably can all do pretty much the same stuff.
The quietest person in the room was actually the key decision maker, CFO, and I completely ignored because I was thinking if he's quiet, he doesn't have much to say.
I like Dutch honesty. I try to be very straightforward with my stakeholders, and I hope they're very straightforward with me.
Number of the day today is 275 interruptions per day. Microsoft 2025 Work Trend Index finds an average worker is pinged every 2 minutes. About 275 interruptions daily from emails, chats, meeting invites, squeezing focus time for project delivery. So what do you guys think about this number of interruptions? Imagine you're flying an aircraft and somebody every 2 minutes ping on your door asking, hey, I have a question. Can you actually land this kind of aircraft? Can you do any delivery with this number of interruptions? What do you think?
It's a personal struggle. I think people in general, well, at least I need to focus a lot on concentrating on my daily work, on my daily tasks. And I don't think it's going to get any easier with agents being autonomous and perhaps pinging us, doing things on our behalf. And then we're wondering, hey, why did that happen? Did I have an agent for that or something?
I think just because you get the interruptions doesn't mean you need to respond to them right there and then. I think there's a great quote I heard recently, which was, don't focus on the urgent and forget to focus on the important. So a lot of the time things will constantly ping, and those interruptions are probably just the work ones, right? We all have other interruptions, personal ones, chats, whatever else is going on out there that isn't our work-related interruptions. So I think the actual number is probably a lot higher, but I'm a big advocate for ignoring interruptions and not having notifications on your phone so that you decide as a human when you want to check what notifications you've got. I think you can very much fall into the kind of the anxiety ping of, oh, here's another one and another one and another one. And I think there is something to be said about gaining back control from that default device setting and actually switching your notifications to the point that, if you decide to check your LinkedIn app and see what notifications you've got, great. You can then do it at the time that suits you and you can see all of them in one go. I think dealing with everything in one go is much more time wise than actually dealing with things every so often as they come up, because there's that content switching that people talk about. And I think that it's very much the case of the fact that we all need to make sure that we have control over these things and don't have control over us.
Don't you think all of us and people who are leading a team, we owe something to organize our team members better, just to deal with this kind of number of pings? I like the idea, which is one of the YouTube celebrity shared, that there are two types of schedules or time frames. One is manager and another one is maker. And if manager is judged by number of calls, number of meetings you have a day, then a maker is opposite. It's how few distraction you have. If we as a managers, knowing having this data, we need to kind of encourage you, being exemplary, saying, hey, if you're in the maker mode, no one can complain you didn't pick up a phone in your maker hours. But from another perspective, we need to say your maker hours cannot be 5 days a week. All your working hours, you're in the maker mode. No one can call you. I was born in Soviet Union, and those days it was a very famous thing. You could go to a manager or like a big boss on Wednesdays, 2 hours a day. And obviously 500 people were crunched into that 2-hour slot. But that's fundamentally the game is, if you have so many pings, you need to protect your team. You need to protect not just your time, but time of your team.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's part of a manager's job to kind of shield the makers from that influx of communication. And it's definitely not an easy job to do. And actually what we had you could call it a brain training or maybe more like a focus training, where we had a period of 6, 7, 8 weeks where we really focused once a week, had a 30-minute training where we really focused on basically annihilating multitasking, getting rid of those habits, improving our habits, focusing on on concentrating on the task at hand, getting those brain tools to do it better, putting our phones aside and whatnot. It was very helpful to the majority of our team members, but a single training is not enough. So that's something that everyone as an individual then has to still keep on enforcing that and driving their new way of working forward themselves. But 100%, I think it starts with managers and them realizing that multitasking is actually really harmful for the brain. It's bad, and it's bad for productivity. Without that understanding on the manager level, I'm not seeing it too possible for an individual to make a change without support.
I remember in my corporate days, I'm lucky to have a structure now where I don't need to deal with it, but it's 250 emails I was getting a day. Literally, I remember open as 250 emails. And it's technically, physically impossible to go through them. And majority of them were long, and all of them expected elaborate response. So agents can address that, hopefully. But I hear you, Antti. I think the key idea, what agents will do, actually, they will ping us even more. That's probably what happened. So, Areti, what do you think? What do you think agents, can they help with productivity and pings?
They can, as long as they are designed to automate as much as possible without needing a human in the mix. So there is that question around, what do you really need the human involved in, and what can you trust an agent to do on your behalf? That's a big question, and it's in a case-by-case basis as well. So it remains to be seen, because we are the bottleneck here. The humans are the bottleneck. We all know software can do some weird stuff sometimes, and therefore I think that is going to make people want to have a bit more control over agent actions than not, particularly when it comes to really important decisions that those agents eventually will probably be making. So there is that element of having that control system in the background, and there will always be exceptions that you need a human to make a decision on, and then agents can maybe learn from that. But it's very early days at the moment with agents, and we are experimenting, and we're not always going to be getting it right. So there's simple things that we can automate, yes, but the more complex elements, I think, are going to take a bit longer for us to get used to and to trust the systems. And yeah, it is a tricky one. But I think overall, will the notifications become more or less? I think they will become different. I don't think there will necessarily be less of them. I think they will be different. The whole idea around agents is that we will be getting involved in things that we feel are worth us getting involved in. To your point, the 250 emails, how many of them were valuable? How many of them were useful? I think, well, the hope at least is that we're going to be getting a lot more interesting things thrown at us. So that's going to be the real test for me, is, are we actually going to be able to get notifications that are more interesting to us, and therefore will it then not matter how many we're getting, because we're really enjoying each one? It's an interesting one.
So it looks like your promise for the audience that you'll get more notification, but all of them will be exciting notification, like pay rise or.
It could be. It's like dating someone, right? Every time you hear from them, it's great. You don't want them to stop getting in touch. It's great, and you don't care how many times they get in touch. The more, the better. But then you will then you will have someone else. You're like, oh, don't read, and then they'll text me. Oh God, here we go again.
You know, that could be the title of this episode. It's your future job will look like your dating life, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
good or bad news, it depends.
No, and a lot of people are using AI now as a dating partner, because that is a very controllable thing, whereas humans are not easy to control, and that induces anxiety. So. Yeah.
Always pleasant, always nice. I think it's the reason why people choose.
You can switch them off if you don't like them.
Exactly,
if you need a break, they won't take it personally.
So you see, the AI future is bright, job future is bright. I don't know why people so doomed. Where this podcast finds you, where you guys at? Areti and I were both in London, Antti, you in Finland, but where this podcast found you?
Physically at home. I am physically at home, southwest of London. That's where I'm based in.
So we're both. I guess you, like me, we're enjoying summer, which is very unusual this year. And Antti, how's weather treating you in Finland?
Yeah, so I'm based in Vantaa, which is a suburb. You could say it's a suburb of Helsinki, one of the adjacent cities of Helsinki, near the airport in Finland. I think, I don't know if it's sunny there, because it's pretty British here when it comes to weather. So it's cold and it's raining. It's not pouring rain, but it's still raining.
This year is super hard to say what's the British weather, right, Areti?
You know, my dad, I think, said it best. The British weather is all 4 seasons in one day.
Antti, what do they say about Finland? I'm sure there is something similar.
Yeah, I think our summers our winters can be pretty cold, or they can be wet, but same is actually with our summers as well. They can be cold and wet, or they can be fairly warm. So you never really know. You never really know what the next day is going to be like for sure.
There's a saying in the Nordics, isn't there? There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes. Isn't that a thing?
I guess you could say that, I guess.
So how does it relate to sea?
Generally.
There is no bad weather.
Yeah, I mean, if you wear a bodysuit, you can probably go into the ocean and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the weird thing I can see actually when I go to the seashore in the UK, where people in bodysuits, they're pretty much swimming any season, even in the winter. As long as you have local heating, then you can swim anywhere.
I mean, can we just put it out there that ice baths are a very weird concept to Mediterranean people?
Yeah.
We don't understand why anyone would want to do that in their life, but apparently some people say it's very actually good for your body and metabolism and things like that. I've only ever done it once, and I can definitely say that there's a good feeling that gets to you after 5 minutes when your body temperature regulates itself. Then you feel great, but those 5 minutes to get to that point.
You need a sauna to go with that, especially if you have a smoke sauna to go with that. Then it's even better.
Yeah, you get like I remember I tried cold shower. And I think I've tried it for a couple of months before I got the really bad flu. I think of really bad cold. So I don't know how it works in terms of immunity. So you've been in the water, it was 5 minutes, then cool. What happened after?
I was fine. We do not give medical advice on this podcast. Please do not think that if you have if you go into the cold, you will get a cold. We are not a medical podcast. No, I think it's just not a pleasant experience. But I think what I do like about it, though, is that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that is a life skill, in all honesty. So I do like that element of it. It's in a very physical sense when you go into cold water. But I do think that there's something about your brain getting used to being in an uncomfortable situation that then eventually over time, in my case was 5 minutes or something like that, then you're comfortable. I wonder what effect that has in dealing with situations where your stress levels spike, or you're doing public speaking and you're freaking out beforehand because it triggers your fight or flight mechanism. And it's I know, and I'm sure they've done studies on this as well. So if anyone knows of any, please let us know. Share. These things are very interesting to me.
So are we ready for our Wheel of Fortune, just to give some tangible advice? Again, for the people who listen to us first time, we have a list of topics which gives a very tangible, very actionable, almost to-do list on a specific topic. We know. The only thing none of us know which topic we'll cover today. And also one of us will be actually the person who will identify if the BS level was too high, and we'll put everyone back to normal level. So first topic is stakeholder Jiu-Jitsu or stakeholder management. Do we want to talk about that today?
Did you call it stakeholder Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes.
Stakeholder karate.
So do we have anything on Jiu-Jitsu?
I just think it's great. I'm going to totally steal that.
Yeah, fine. So, okay, so let's see who will be the BS buster. Yeah. And this is Vlad. Yeah, it's me. So it's me who needs to be the voice of reality, check everyone else. Okay. So stakeholder Jiu-Jitsu, what do you guys think? What kind of your best advice, best practice, how to manage and how you define stakeholder?
Yeah, I think a stakeholder is really anyone who feels they have a vested interest in the project. And that's a very broad definition, but I think it's what's important to recognize about stakeholders is there are stakeholders that matter and there are stakeholders that don't. So anyone can be interested, but the reality is what is their influence on the project and are they a key stakeholder, basically. I think it's important to categorize your stakeholders into different groups. You need to know who they are, but you need to know what group they fall under and what they're representing, because each stakeholder, particularly when it comes to project meetings, delivery, things like that, you should have a representative of each group of your stakeholders. Show and tells is a great example where you should have a representative of each stakeholder, but not all of the stakeholders. I mean, I've been in show and tells where there's been 150 people. Too many, right? Too much. It's not necessary. And it's so much of people's time as well. So I think when it comes to stakeholder management, it's about having key ones involved in the relevant things. And then, of course, you can have broader kind of, for lack of a better word, announcements and show and tells and things like that for relevant groups. But I think the important thing is to recognize that different stakeholder groups will need different information at different times as well.
Just to challenge you here as a contrarian, what if out of those, did you say 150?
As an example, yeah. It was three figures,
so,
yeah.
How do you reduce to meaningful number? Because what I saw in my life where people actually, wrong people have been cut out because of many political reasons inside the company, and wrong people were introduced. So a person who will be the main victim of new automation was actually put in the charge of the project a few times. So how do you navigate that?
I think it's basically what you said, is that if you are affected, you have basically a conflict of interest, then you're not the right stakeholder for the project. So stakeholders involved in the project decision making shouldn't have conflicts of interest, and that I think applies for everything in life, right? You can't, or at least those conflicts of interest need to be disclosed and carefully considered, because there's definitely been situations, I'm sure we've all been in, where there's been stakeholders that are fundamentally opposed. I mean, I remember a project where the project sponsor didn't like Dynamics, wanted a different software package. Reluctantly over time, they accepted the fact that this was the software, but it was more difficult than it needed to be, is my point. So you do need to consider, was that person the best project sponsor for that specific project if they didn't believe in the software for whatever historical reasons. I think they had been in another organization where the software implementation had been not great. They hadn't seen value, they hadn't seen benefits, and they came to that organization. They were like, after the decision had been made, and contracts were signed and everything else, they came in after the fact. And that's, that can happen. But when you are opposed to it, that makes your life a lot more difficult than it has to be.
Why do you think people who are opposing the project can be usually assigned to a project sponsor? Why people who are bad fit usually end up in a decision-making role?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. I think it's just that they happen to own that specific piece of something, whether it's a sales director owning a new CRM system or a project director, head of PMO owning a project management system, and then through a company's procurement policies, through all that voodoo that's behind it, the company ends up with a certain piece of tech, and then your stakeholder just has grievances against that, biased grievances against that tech, most likely because of a failed implementation in the past. They think it's bad. It's all bad. It can only be bad because of failed implementation. So they're not willing to see the light anymore. So maybe it simply comes through a position. And then, what can you do? I mean, again, if you have the head of PMO wanting that new project management system and they buy Dynamics for it, I'm not saying you should buy Dynamics for it. You might have other options as well.
Other software packages are available.
Which might be better or worse than Dynamics. So let's give a political answer here. But just for the sake of example, if they had a bad experience with Dynamics, then I think it's hard to see anything good in that in that project in the next implementation, and kind of have to do it and go through that endeavor again.
I mean, we've got to consider as well, right, that people can change their minds. So I still remember when I was a fairly young consultant, I was talking about D365 sales and how much of a difference it would make to the company introducing that piece of software, and how much it could automate and how much it could make a difference. And the CEO just stood up and said, I'm going to stop you right there. This is just a tool for my people and nothing more. And I was like, okay, so and that can be very difficult to have to deal with when you really believe and you really can see the difference that it can make, but your stakeholder groups or even one individual is fundamentally opposed to it, or they don't see it the same way. It's a process to understand where they're coming from. I think what their reality is as opposed to your reality, and then try to understand that.
And the discussion of what about Audible, software as a service systems, whether it's Dynamics, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's Oracle, what have you, what is better, what is which one is better than the other one, which one is worse than the other one.
This would
Generally, I
never
don't.
happen with SAP.
Yeah, that would never happen
Yeah.
with SAP.
It's
In general,
yeah.
in general, you know, they probably can all do pretty much the same stuff. And I think we all know that. I think customers also realize that whether you choose Salesforce Dynamics or Oracle, they can pull off the same kinds of things. And again, a lot of times I think that maybe customers buy these systems as, with a kind of like with a consumer mentality, that as a consumer, if you have a bad image of a brand, you don't like it, you've got a bad experience from your hairspray or from your deodorant, you don't want to go in that direction again. Maybe we sometimes choose these things too much based on our feelings and it's kind of like as our consumer selves, whether as opposed to with actual rational thought. That's at least something that I've seen happen. I want to say I've seen happen a lot of times.
We should just create an AI model that makes those decisions, takes the feelings out of
Yeah.
it. Oh, but sorry, the only one thing I would say about what you said is around the fact that you said they buy these systems. Don't you think that is in a lot of cases what the problem is? Because for me, I feel like if you're gonna go and buy D365 sales, there isn't much difference between getting D365 sales and other competitive products, who shall not be named. But if you do want to be a Microsoft house and you get an ecosystem situation happening, that's where the benefit is. Standalone Microsoft products are not that are not going to give you much of a benefit compared to other products, but the benefit is it's in the synergy between them, that there is value, not just individual systems. And perhaps one of the issues is that people look at it, like you said, as a consumer, I'm going to get a phone, not I'm going to be a Google customer or an Apple customer or a. What do you think?
My usual response, if you don't mind, my usual response when people ask what system to choose, I'm saying what system is closer to you, what kind of system you have kind of skills in house, or you have a partner who can deliver. Because at the end of the day, they all work well, and the question is which one you can deliver. I mean, with your means, with your capabilities, and everything.
And what's the cost of ownership as well, right?
Cost of ownership, but my take, they usually choose the thing which was sold, or maybe an executive from the top level decided, you know what, this year is year of Microsoft, so let's do Microsoft.
Or they were given a humongous discount to pick it.
I think in a perfect world, yes, we or customers buy into that ecosystem story that you're running Microsoft 365, you're running Teams and whatnot. So this business application that's based on Dynamics fits your ecosystem pretty well. Still, unfortunately, a lot of times I'm seeing that completely decoupled. So the F&O or the BC or the CRM system or the customer service system is almost completely decoupled from the actual benefits of the ecosystem. Now, you got some integration points. You might be running Teams inside your CRM, or you might have some cloud flows doing some flicky stuff, and then you're sort of integrated into the ecosystem. But the business processes and the core, oftentimes I'm seeing they're very separate from the rest of the Microsoft cloud. And also the stakeholders involved are completely separate and decoupled from the core Microsoft cloud. And I think where the AI is interesting is you don't have to go with just Microsoft for AI. You can go with so many other, I guess you could call it vendors if you want to say, or AI providers, whatever you want to call it. You don't really have to stick to Microsoft. You can choose others as well. So are we losing that meaning of the ecosystem through these AI tools, or is the importance still there? That's interesting to find out.
Yeah, especially with AI now, it feels like the choice and battle between brands will be fundamental. We're beaten to death the conversation how to manage stakeholder when he's choosing, or he or she choosing platform or trying to navigate the difficult conversation. Any other Jiu-Jitsu move you guys have, how to identify who is the bad stakeholder, who is the good stakeholder? Maybe anything you can share.
I think the only thing I would say is be aware of people that are quiet, the ones that are not saying anything. Because a lot of the time, if they're not saying anything to you, they're saying things to other people, or when you're not in the room, they are complaining. The ones that are withdrawn, I think, pay attention to the people that are withdrawn. Some of them are just introverted, right? And they're just not very forthcoming. But either way, give those people a chance to say what they think, and generally trying to have that culture of trust and honesty really, that they can speak up and they can say, if they think something is shit, great, let's just talk about it and have
If I
that
can,
honest conversation.
if I can interrupt you here, because there is huge value. Once I remember the quietest person in the room was actually the key decision maker. So the person in the quiet person was actually CFO, and all other people were actually a kind of small fish comparing to him. And I completely disregarded what was my early days. I completely ignored because I was thinking if he's quiet, he doesn't have much to say. And there is huge value.
There is
One thing I'm going.
So, sorry, what I was going to say is that in a lot of cases, the people that are in leadership positions will speak last because they don't want their opinion to influence what the people below them think. So it's actually a trait
Good
of
leaders.
good leaders, to actually listen to what everyone else says and then go last because they do not want people to be biased and think that, oh, well, if my manager thinks that, maybe I should, think that too.
Yeah.
So they can be, on purpose, the quietest people in the room too. So we need to consider that, yeah.
My quick advice, if you go to a session, it's actually, there is no excuse to not go and check every single person invited on LinkedIn, unless it's 150 like Kareti you mentioned. But if it's meaningful number, it's actually, there is no excuse today to not go. There are a couple of actually handy tools which will tell you about the person, give you some kind of background story, because you don't want, all you know is just the face and name, and just trying to fake it through initial hands conversation to learn what this person is about. And if I would follow my own advice, I would never realize that person who was invited sitting quiet in the room was actually CFO because it wasn't his LinkedIn. So
I like Dutch honesty. I throw that around a lot. I like Dutch honesty. I try to be very straightforward with my stakeholders, and I hope they're very straightforward with me as well. Whether they're other vendors, consultants, or customer stakeholders. I guess I'm primarily talking about customer stakeholders right now. Like honest feedback is key. It can be negative as long as it's constructive, but feedback is needed. If opinions are needed, if I need opinions on user stories, requirements, whatnot, processes, I expect to hear those opinions from those stakeholders. If I don't, then I'm going to be pretty honest with those and tell them that it's hard to proceed if there's no feedback to questions asked. So I think like straightforwardness and honesty, those go far. Dutch honesty.
Dutch honesty and not shying away from tough conversations
Yeah.
and setting standards and boundaries as well,
Yeah.
I think.
Even if you're not the most powerful person in the room, just don't be shy to, and Dutch honesty, it's unless you have really bad manager, and in this case you probably need to move company.
And you know what, perhaps that is the ultimate kind of suggestion is very early on the project, make this clear, make this culture clear, that as part of the project and as a team of group of people trying to achieve things together, that your main goal is to have that trust and that Dutch honesty with each other. And to everyone to agree at the very beginning that is what they are agreeing to.
Yeah. So that's all we had for today. So if you're talking about the being disrupted, just protect your time, protect time of your team. And if you're talking about the managing stakeholders, know who you're talking to, be open, don't be shy, and just listen to some other podcasts. In our next series, we're going to cover data migration minefields. We're going to cover governance paradox, integration nightmare, user adoption crisis, and performance apocalypse. Apocalypses. All these topics we're going to be covered, and just one at a time. So keep listening, keep staying with us, and see you next time.